Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we're playing Eldrazi, but we're playing a slightly different build to the ones I've played before on the channel. The decks have slowly been evolving in different ways. There's now two main camps for the Eldrazi aggro deck. You have the mono green builds, which has like Eldrazi Repurposer and just a more solid mana base. And then you have the sort of multicolored one that we're playing here, which has a little bit of touch of blue for evoking Nulldrifter. It's got the red for the Linebreaker, as well as the green for the Mycospawn. It also has a deeper Mycospawn package than some of the other ones, because you're running Gaea's Cradle and Karakas, as well as your many Wastelands to ruin your opponent's day. So the way this deck works is not exactly any great mystery. We have a bunch of fast mana from Ancient Tombs, Eldrazi Temples, Eye of Ugins, and we've got Lotus Petals and Mox Diamonds alongside that. So we're powering out some big scary monsters early doors. So Glaring Fleshraker is kind of a nice little bit of oil that greases the wheels, gets you some extra reach, gets you some extra mana so you can multi-spell, and then also ends up being like a weird fireball with Kozilek's command. So yeah, we're just playing big monsters really. Thought-Knot Seer taking apart the hand, Nulldrifter at the top of the curve that can also just be a draw 2 if we need it. We've got the Sowing Mycospawn that can dig up our Wastelands while blowing up our opponent's land and just put them absolutely in the dirt. The Linebreaker is just basically a 3-mana Reality Smasher that makes every creature you draw into a Reality Smasher because they're all going to have haste and it's going to be pretty scary. I actually do like the builds with 4 It the Heralds the End because I think the combo of It the Heralds the End, Kozilek's command, and Glaring Fleshraker is really solid. It gives you the ability to go wide in a really nice way, and going wide is obviously better with the Linebreaker as well because more creatures, more power. And we have one Wastescape Battlemage that we can shoot it for with our Eye of Ugin if we need to mess with some stuff. We don't have any of the really big Eldrazi. You sometimes see an Ulamog in these lists, but we're not running that in this particular build. We've got some Caverns to help cast our Eldrazi as well as making them uncountable, along with a couple of Unclaimed Territories. And then we're looking at Forest and Yavimaya to get our green sources. Because if we get our green sources with the same Mycospawn, then that gets us the other sources we need in theory. Obviously, you know, these are rainbow sources here too. Sideboard-wise, Artifacty, combo-y style decks, we want to hate on those. If you need some more interaction for like mid-rangey creature matchups, like bouncing a Murktide Regent that's blocking us, that sort of jam, then out it goes. Some Leylines for the graveyard decks to just play like some giant Archon of Cruelty and beat us with that. A little bit from Move and Dismember, and then some Chalice of the Void for the decks that are going to have like really efficient 1-mana removal, like Swords to Plowshares, and that sort of jazz, but also can be used in combo matchups too. Alright, and that's pretty much it, so let's jam into this one. Like and subscribe, and let's make some big, scary, colourless monsters. Alright, our opening hand for this first game of our first round is a turn 2 Thought-Knot Seer, but then if we get Wastelanded at all, we don't get to make a turn 2, it becomes a turn 3, and a second Wasteland is quite devastating. I think we probably want to do something better that can commit something to the board on turn 1, or at least have the ability to reliably commit something to the board on turn 2, or at least turn 2 plus X turns, where X is the amount of turns we get Wasteland, if that makes sense. So I'm not convinced by this one. This hand has some similar problems to the last one, to be honest. I'm a little reluctant to mulligan further. Right, we can't really cast a Linebreaker, so we'll send it back. I think the first one, maybe we keep on a 6, but now we're just going to have to keep this one. What is the best play for us here? If we play out one of these two lands, it means that we can draw a Thought-Knot Seer for turn 2. Which one would I most like to get Wastelanded? Probably the Ancient Tomb, because I don't want to be paying too much life over the course of this game. But if they don't Wasteland this, then we'll obviously be taking a lot of life from it, but at the same point, we'll be on the front foot playing some massive creatures. Yavimaya. Okay. The thing that I'm somewhat interested in dealing with. So I think we want to draw a card, and I think I would like to exile this Yavimaya. Which does expose us a little bit to a Daze. I don't really want either of these. Not what I'm about right now. Alright. So next turn we can do some pretty gross things with Sowing Mycospawn. We get to kick a Sowing Mycospawn, and then we can play a follow-up Mycospawn. Plains, that's the removal colour, so that's the one I want to blow up. We can kick this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's get rid of this Plains. They should float white mana, I believe. Feels like our opponent's got a plow. What land is actually useful here? I'm pretty suspicious of a Wasteland actually doing anything for us here. Cradle is certainly an interesting one that we can generate a lot of mana from next turn. We could just get this Karakas and boot this Yavimaya out of play though. Our opponent started this turn with 3 permanents. They're going to end this turn with 1 permanent. And we're going to have 5. So that's a pretty good turn. And we get to do it all over again next turn. And probably fire in with the Linebreaker at the same time. a Ponder. You really see the power of Sowing Mycospawn in this game. I think it's probably the card that impresses me most about the new Eldrazi decks. Wasteland. They're going to take out our Eye here, or they're going to take out our green source. Gone for the Ancient Tomb. That is not the one I would have taken out if I was our opponent. Right, our opponent doesn't get to play Magic anymore. Wait, I've left the wrong land. We're supposed to use one of our Eldrazi mana. That's a slight error there. I'll get Cavern of Souls, because this doesn't tap for colourless mana. So what we should have done is just use one of the mana from the Eldrazi Temple and then use the other mana from the Karakas. Obviously, it's a bit of a case of moaning about our diamond shoes being too tight, because we are clearly winning this game by a pretty sizable margin right now. Sure, you can plow my guy. Get walloped by a big bunch this turn. So this is red mana, and we need one colourless mana. Guess I'll play out my Eldrazi Temple. Doesn't really matter here, does it? We have some mana left over, but that's fine. We go to attacks. Bash for 8. We can maybe try and get our opponent dead next turn. We're still a little ways off of tapping the Eye of Ugin, but missing out on the Eldrazi Linebreaker last turn. If things go really well for our opponent, could come back to bite us. Because we could have our opponent dead on our next attack step. We're going to need one more attack step, most likely. Although if we find any colourless creature, that might be enough. Alright, our opponent's scooping it up. We did miss a tiny bit of damage by the auto-pain for this, just clicking through. Alright, let's go to the sideboard. So this feels like a matchup where stopping our opponent's Swords to Plowshares is quite an important thing to do. And I'm not really convinced by many of the other things I'm seeing. So I think I'd rather have a Chalice over a Wastescape Battlemage. I like all of our creatures, if I'm being honest here. We just want to keep assembling creatures and stopping our opponent's ability to interact with them. I think we can probably trim on a Kozilek's command. There's no point boarding out creatures to board in the Chalices, because the Chalices are there to protect our creatures from Swords to Plowshares. Maybe our opponent can remove the Chalice, but it'll take them a turn. And a turn for us is usually hitting them for 4+ damage. Our opponent's already shown a propensity to get basics, so there is an argument to trim a Wasteland in this situation to accommodate a Chalice. We'll trim one Wasteland and have these Chalices in. This hand is quite slow. Can we do better? I think so. Alright, I'll describe this one as better. We've seen Wastelands from our opponent. Our opponent probably has the Harbinger of the Seas, so I think I'm inclined to keep this Wastes. We're probably bidding off the Mox Diamond. It can be the green we need later on, but I think just having all of our powerful stuff going on is where I want to be. Alright, Ponder, I think we're going to play out the Eldrazi Temple. They did not shuffle off their Ponder. That's over to us. How important is it to me to get my Fleshraker being uncounterable? I think that is quite important. So we don't have the most amount of spells right now. So I think I'm going to play the Temple, and then next turn play the Cavern and drop the Fleshraker. It's a touch slower than I would like to be. Right, not a Wasteland, so that's alright. So we get uncounterable Fleshraker. Damping Sphere. Okay. That is going to certainly get in our way. So we name Eldrazi here. This only taps for 1 now because of this, as demonstrated here. If we play the Mox Diamond, then we don't get to play the Fleshraker this turn, because it will cost 1 more mana anyway, so we're just kind of locked a little bit under this Damping Sphere. Here's a Saga ticks upwards, and there's a Wasteland. Yep, that's pretty good. Going to lock us out of spells for another turn. Sowing Mycospawn. So Eye of Ugin actually does useful things, because this reduces the cost. It doesn't tap for 2. Very key distinction here. If they are playing Harbinger, I probably want to get this snow-covered Wastes in. We can play the Fleshraker, but it won't be uncounterable. Is that what matters here? Or do we just need to get something on board? We could evoke a Nulldrifter, but that does expose our Eye of Ugin for a turn. It hasn't wastelanded yet. What could they have with the Urza Saga? Alright, I think I'm going to play out the Fleshraker. We need to get something going. I can play out the Mox Diamond. It will get countered. We'll get a 1/1. Is that worth it? I don't believe it is. Right, the Saga ticks up. They didn't get any guys out of it, but it's not really that big a deal. Oh, okay, we're doing Dreadnought things. Does that change how I want to approach this game? I believe it does. I think we would rather have the Wastescape Battlemages to tackle this rather than the Chalices. Obviously, Chalice can impact this, but just being able to take a big scary monster out of play is quite handy, because this is the sort of thing that outclasses what we're trying to accomplish. Okay, so we can play a Mycospawn. What does that actually do for us? That's a different question, but we'll answer that one in a bit. Okay, so we get a little friend. Eldrazi Temple doesn't do anything here. Wasteland doesn't do anything. Karakas doesn't do anything. A lot of our cards here don't do anything. Like, we could Wasteland our opponent. That takes us further away from something that might answer this. We don't have much in the way of answers for this. We're going to need to draw into Kozilek's command. It's probably roughly where we're looking at here as a solution. Do I take out the Underground Sea? Or do I just hold mana for Kozilek's command? Probably just holding mana for Kozilek's command, isn't it? And we're not going to be removing this Damping Sphere. Which means, I guess we have colourless sources in play already. So we can just get the forest and be secured with our forests. I'm not expecting Harbinger of the Seas now we've seen the Damping Sphere, but we're kind of built to play around it post-board in the configuration I've submitted here. It's just how things are. Alright, so we're going to take 12. And then we're going to have to work out what happens next. We can cast an uncounterable Nulldrifter next turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana, -2 from the Eye of Ugin. Psychic Frog. Yep, that's another threat that can just clock us pretty big and hard. But it is what it is. Alright, Phyrexian Dreadnought. I guess we let that hit. They can't 8 us with just the frog, but it's going to become a difficult situation for us, even if it wasn't already. Alright. Eldrazi, cast this. Uncounterable Eldrazi. So the Lotus Petal will cost us a mana here. And then the Linebreaker is going to cost us 2 mana, right? Is that right? So if we play the Lotus Petal, that covers the red. We still need to cover the colourless and 2 from the Damping Sphere. Can we actually do that? I don't believe we can. If we play the Lotus Petal out, then our Fleshraker becomes a... this is 2... So it's going to cost 2 more. But also cost 2 less. So it's going to be 3 mana. So we play this out, we get another one, we still can't cast that. And these aren't counted either, right? These are just cost more. So we're going to be trying to kill our opponent next turn. Do we want to put this Lotus Petal into play at the expense of an Eldrazi spawn? What is going under the bus here? We need to prevent quite a lot of damage. I think I will cast this. So how much can we afford to put in front of this? So if we click to cast this, we can see how much it's going to be. 3 mana, yeah. So we don't have enough to cast that. We've got Yavimaya off of this. We could have been tapping this for mana. So maybe we're supposed to not play around the Harbinger of the Seas there. Okay. This could be a difficult turn. So that Psychic Frog can bash us for 5. Triumph of St. Catherine. What does that do to the equation here? Certainly a bit of a doozy. Alright, I think I thought our opponent was just like a blue-white control-y style deck. Alright, they hit the Eye of Ugin now. Gonna make things a little bit more challenging next turn. We can't do Fleshraker things. We need to try and survive this turn, which is not necessarily the easiest way. So if they attack with just the Dreadnought, that would be better for us, but... Alright, just the Dreadnought. So if we block 3 on this, that's 9 we take. If we block 4, that's 8. Are we supposed to play the Fleshraker, the Nulldrifter, or are we supposed to just take the Nulldrifter body out and enjoy what we have here? Because this on its own is not enough. We have to put 2 bodies in front of this. Is it more important to have mana for next turn? I think so. And we're not attacking with a Mycospawn anyway, are we? Thanks, I hate it. So what we need to do here is it's going to be really hard to even do like chaining Kozilek's commands if that's the card we draw because of the Damping Sphere. Yeah, we sideboarded wrong. We needed Wastescape Battlemage. Okay, let's play a land out. This is another Eldrazi land. So this costs us a whopping 3 mana. We get to ping our opponent for 1. Then we get to ping our opponent for 2. Or for a second one. And then the next guy... So this next one costs 3 mana. And then this one will cost 5 mana. I think we can wriggle our way out of this one. Each one of these does deal 2 damage though because of our Fleshraker. I think I'm going to be short still though. Because this is going to put them to 2... Actually no, we do have this, right? Have I got the maths right? This is worth 6 damage if we deploy it. So, red... Oh no, we're 1 mana shy, aren't we? That is the problem here. 1, 2, 3, 4 mana. And we needed 1 more for this. And there's no way we can attack profitably here because our opponent has a Triumph of St. Catherine. As we cast this, we get 2 triggers. Each trigger pings them for 2. Oh, hold on. If we just cast this Mox Diamond, does that work? 1, 2. So this gets us 2 triggers. Each trigger pings our opponent for 2 because we have 2 Fleshrakers. Stifling one of the triggers. Yeah, that will do it. And now this costs like 1 million mana. Yeah, we were closer. Alright, let's go back to sideboarding. Okay, I don't want chalices anymore. I just want the Wastescape Battlemages, and we'll just fight on that axis. Do I want access to Wasteland? Would I rather just have another K command? It's pretty good at killing a 1 mana 12/12, so I kind of like that as an option. Alright, I kind of didn't really realise what our opponent was playing. I thought they were playing like a slow blue-white control deck. I saw these basics, I saw the Tamiyo, which isn't a thing you see that often in the Dreadnought decks, but obviously they're an Esper Dreadnought deck, so it's a little bit of a different kettle of fish right there. Okay, these Mox Diamonds are pretty bad here. I think we can do better than this. Not great for us, is it? Do I want to mulligan deeper? Or do I want to keep this? It has a lot of colourless mana. We are seeing the weakness of this particular build. I suppose we could try and fire off a Kozilek's command for 2 on turn 2. And that's not the worst thing. But it's not spectacular, is it? I think it's harder for us to cast the Linebreaker than anything else here. I'm reluctant to throw away a threat, though. Let's get rid of the Nulldrifter. Obviously, that is a threat as well, but this is more of a premier threat. The Nulldrifter is a thing that we do later on. It's a general rule. So, I think we play out the Temple because the Eye of Ugin is better if they have something like a Damping Sphere because we at least get 2 mana out of a land. Whereas that's not something we get out of a Damping Sphere from the Eldrazi Temple and stuff. Now, this does mean that we're not going to be able to play the Eye of Ugin into Yavimaya curve to drop the Sowing Mycospawn. Right, they've got an Underground Sea, and they're going with the Tamiyo. So this gives us a good use for our Kozilek's command here. Thought-Knot Seer, though, that is a better thing to do with our mana. On this one. See what kind of magic our opponent is working with. Didn't look like any right there. Plague Engineer, Psychic Frog, Phyrexian Dreadnought. So, Triumph of St. Catherine is definitely the most annoying one if they can set it up. Because the others we can actually answer. So I'm going to get rid of this Triumph. This does give them the Psychic Frog, but then we just kill the Psychic Frog next turn anyway. I just don't want them to have this giant lifelink body. Because that's not going to work well for any of us. If our opponent wants to try and kill us with the, kill our creature with the frog, we can absolutely blow them out with this Kozilek's command. That's going to be a little bit telegraphed. Alright, they drew a Ponder for turn to move things around a little bit. I'm curious how much counter magic our opponent has. So Plague Engineer is something we can interact with as well. I don't really want to be using Kozilek's command on the Tamiyo at this point. They didn't shuffle off the Ponder. Comes Tamiyo, they don't just want it to soak up 3 damage. Certainly a much better use of Tamiyo. If they left it back, it would signal they have something like a Brainstorm, so they can flip it. So we can stop the Plague Engineer coming down now if we want to. So I think I would just cast this at the Heralds the end. And then we'll get a nice attack in for 5. It's going to slow our opponent down a little bit. Just might force our opponent into playing the Frog, which we can then Kozilek's command, and then crash through for a big 7, whilst also having a bunch of little guys in play. Just another Ponder. Once this resolves, they're going to have a couple of mystery cards in hand. I played out a land. So 1 mystery card over there. The Tamiyo is being held back, which does suggest a Brainstorm is in our near future. Certainly annoying that we didn't hit a land there, especially not one of our coloured lands. But we are going for the high ceiling build of Eldrazi here, where we get to cast all the fancy versions of Eldrazi. But sometimes our mana won't help us. So our opponent does cast a Brainstorm. We can, or if they crack this fetch, we can then kill the Tamiyo. If that's what we want to do here. I'm going for a block here. Alright, they're just taking it. Alright, that's also fine by me. We have lethal damage with this Kozilek's command next turn, because we get 2 little guys. 1 power, right? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, it's still 1 shot. 2 shots, sorry. Well, it's going to be 1 shot because they're going to crack the Flooded Strand. If we can dig to a red source, deploy the Linebreaker, then we have all the damages. Alright, so we've got blue and a white. It's going to be a Dreadnought. This is certainly something worthy of Kozilek's commanding. So we will exile target creature, and I would like to scry, please. Our opponent picked up a Force of Will along the way. I guess this works, because we draw the Mox Diamond now, and then we draw the Ancient Tomb next turn, and then we deploy the Linebreaker. Is there a way we can do this? So this is... We have 1 colourless mana up. We can deploy both here, right? If we just cast this for 1 Eldrazi mana, 1 green mana here, then we can search for a red source like a Cavern, and then we can play the Linebreaker and get the maximum damage. Alright, yeah. So we get the Linebreaker and we swing for 4 plus 3 at 7. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So plenty. So that's the first match in the bag. Let's go to the second one. So we can evoke a Nulldrifter on turn 1. If we put the Unclaimed Territory underneath the Mox Diamond. It's a case of, do you want the guaranteed mana or do you want the Cradle? Right, I think turn 1 Nulldrifter setting up some mana is fine. You don't always make turn 1 plays with Eldrazi. You want to try and have a good turn 2 play. So I think we play out the Eldrazi Temple. Deploy the Mox. It probably has to be the Cradle that goes here. We just need the reliable mana, I think. Especially since it's going to hit all of our colours. Let's get some bonus cards. A Wastescape Battlemage and a Lotus Petal. Not the biggest hits in the world, but the Lotus Petal does ease us into this game if we need to play something else or we get Wastelanded. That sort of jam. But we can play a Mycospawn next turn, which is going to be Delver, just a Ponder. So Volcanic Island into Ponder makes me think either of Delver or of a sort of show and tell style deck. Those are the first things that pop up on my radar. So we play this out. We name Eldrazi. We play this Lotus Petal, allowing us to play a round of Days. And then we get Mycospawn in. What land would I like on a board like this? It's probably the Eye of Ugin, considering we have Kozilek's Command. And Kozilek's Command plus Eye of Ugin lets you just chain commands into each other because you get 2 mana off of each one. Alright, we're going to save this Wastescape Battlemage in case we need to bounce something out of play. If we have no other threats, then we can deploy the Battlemage just so we at least have something going on. Alright, Scalding Tarn. That's not like a soul land. Alright, this is looking more like Delver now, rather than show and tell, or sneak and show, or any of those sorts of variants. Alright, Grixis Delver it is. A Psychic Frog. We can bounce this out of play, we can Kozilek's Command it, we can do some stuff. Opponent has a lot of cards there. I'm a little bit skeptical about how easily we can resolve a Kozilek's Command. When we attack, if our opponent wants to dump some stuff into this, we can then try and answer it with a Kozilek's Command. Do I take the uncounterable Battlemage bounce on this? Or do I go for a little Kozilek's Command? I think we're going to go for a little Kozilek's Command. I would like to scry and draw a card and exile target creature. So X has to be 2 here. So we're at least tapping this. And I think we'd like to look at... So we need 1 colourless, 1 blue. So if we do 1 colourless, 1 blue. So if we leave 1 in our pool, we can still do the Battlemage if we want to do that. So yeah, we've just got more threats in play now. And then our Linebreaker is better next turn. Sure, you can have some puny little guy. So, red mana here. Eldrazi mana here. Hits keep on coming. Make our guy large. They got 3 types in their graveyard, so it's certainly possible they could grow their Dragon's Rage Channeler to a stage where it will kill our Wastescape Battlemage. So I think if we didn't find the Linebreaker, I'd have been less inclined to play the Battlemage out then. Right, so we got a Fatal Push. So that's going to be enough types for this Channeler. Do I want to offer the trade of Mycospawn for Channeler? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we do have an activation next turn. I think I'll take this trade. They didn't want it. Not a surprise. Alright, let's play out Cradle. So we could have kept the Battlemage in hand to like answer the next threat. But I think I just want to put our foot on the gas a little bit and have a bigger turn. I guess we could have saved it and had been able to cast the Battlemage and the Linebreaker, but then the only one of them gets to attack instead of both. And I was kind of hoping to draw some business rather than just some more mana, but it's okay. The punish here is if they get a Murktide, but the Murktide will only be a 5. Wasteland, that is pretty solid. Goodbye, Eye of Ugin. But this clock doesn't favour our opponent. I have to imagine they have a Murktide to follow up with. Yeah. So now I'm regretting playing this Wastescape Battlemage out. Gone for the 5/5. Hit the Heralds the end. How does that change things? Not massively. Do we hold it in case we draw a Fleshraker? That's the next question. Or do we just deploy more stuff and make turning guys sideways difficult for our opponent? I think that's probably the way here. We'll save the Lotus Petal in case we draw a Fleshraker, but I don't think we need to save our creatures because we do need to try and pressure our opponent. Although it's very difficult to do through a 5/5. They're only 1 card type off of flipping the Channeler. So if they've got like a Brainstorm or something, then they can peck away for 3, and we're kind of roadblocked by this Murktide region that we could have bounced if we'd kept the Wastescape Battlemage. I think our decisions might be the thing that are getting us in a position of failure here. Petty Theft. On the Heralds the end. Okay. I guess bouncing either of the other 2 is pretty bad for our opponents. They put a land in, so that's not going to be flipping the channeler yet. So they probably can't attack with that. Will they attack for 5? No. Thought-Knot Seer, you say. The chunky boy. Let's see how we do with it. Alright, Force of Will. This is now going to flip the channeler. Let's put our Heralds into play. So they can just nip away for 3, hold back the 5/5, and then deploy the Brazen Borrower. Oh, I'm fascinated by that brainstorm. I reckon just attacking for 3 and playing the Borrower is pretty good. But if they find a land here, they get to do that as well. So, or if they had a land in hand, that's fine too. But I think you want to be able to deploy an additional evasive threat, because the Eldrazi decks aren't very good at dealing with flyers. I know some decks have started playing, it's like a 5 mana, like 7/5 reach guy that does stuff when lands come into play. I can't remember what its name is or exactly what it does, but I saw it the other day and thought, oh, okay. And that's trying to answer the problem that Eldrazi decks are very weak to flying, because we're all big ground pounders here. If they can sort of wall us off and then chip away with Delver style creatures, it's pretty good. Like Delver has traditionally been pretty good against... Oh wow, we're coming in with both. That's kind of terrifying. Delver's been traditionally pretty good against the old Eldrazi strategies. For the most part, at least. Alright, didn't play another threat. So we've got a turn to try and win the game here. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They kill us on the backswing. Wait, they didn't play this, right? So it's 5, 6, 7, 8. So our opponent has a lightning bolt or another... Like, it doesn't matter what we're doing here, does it? We're attacking with everything because that's all we have available to us. There's no point trying to math this out. Our opponent didn't play the Borrower end step. Oh, sorry, can't play the Borrower end step. But if they got a lightning bolt, we die. If they've got another Murktide, they can exile 3 things. That's enough. Yeah, so they get the Brainstorm here. And if they've got a Murktide, because we attacked, it means that just the Murktide would have been fine to win, but we're probably not beating another Murktide anyway. When you got a Ponder, I have to imagine they have something to kill us. Otherwise, that last attack just seems so reckless. A Bauble? Okay. There's a lot of surveilling going on. And they're putting it all to the graveyard. I don't know why you go through all that rigmarole if you just have a lightning bolt, though. Oh, they didn't have it. What? That attack last time was very reckless. Surely you just nip away. Oh, wow. They scoot up. So we made a misplay, I would say, of playing out this Wastescape Battlemage. Like, we did just draw, like, nothing for a few turns afterwards, which made it look worse as an option. And our opponent did immediately play the thing that would have made it better to have in hand. But our opponent's last attack, like, if they just attack for 3 here and leave the Murktide back, we're kind of still blocked unless we want to throw away, like, a Mycospawn or whatever. So, yeah, they really helped us out there. So, what would I like to do against my opponent? I think it's just Battle Mages. Get me to the Battle Mage. Alright, bouncing out the scary things is where I want to be here. I think Nulldrifter might be a little bit expensive to try and cast the backside of. Like, you could board in Chalices here to stop, like, all their cantrips and stuff like that. But, honestly, having more guys and more interaction feels like a good way to be. Karakas, not doing anything this matchup, so I'll board out one of those. Yes, it is a mana-producing land, but it's not that important, I wouldn't say. Okay. We can keep this. We can go Ancient Tomb into Glaring Fleshraker. Or we can go Ancient Tomb into Thought-Knot Seer. Nethergoyf. This doesn't have Death Touch. It's Barragoyf that has Death Touch, yeah. Okay. I'm not in the mood for throwing out a Wastescape Battlemage here. Would I like my Ancient Tomb or my Cavern of Souls to be Wastelanded? Probably the Ancient Tomb, because I don't want to tap it too many times against a Delver opponent. But it is the better one to play because we can't play a lot of our other spells in the face of... Alright, so there's the Wasteland. Yeah, so we can't play a lot of our spells in the face of the Eye of Ugin as one of our mana sources because it doesn't actually tap for the colourless symbol we need to cast spells. Sowing Mycospawn. Right, let's play this on Eldrazi. And unfortunately we have to pass. So we could play Eye of Ugin instead that turn. But that does expose one of our soul lands, and we're going to need the soul lands to get back in the game after being wastelanded off of one of our sources. So these Nethergoyfs are now 2/3s. Not another wasteland. Happy to see that. Dragon's Race Channeler. Well, there's another threat. I'm not super happy to see that one, but it is what it is. If they get Delirium, they're going to go pretty wild here. Alright, a Lotus Petal. Alright, we're just in with the Lotus Petal. Okay. So we kind of need this to play our Mycospawn this turn. I think is what we're doing. It's either Mycospawn or... I think it is the Mycospawn here, because that just makes us have a much better turn next turn. Get ourselves an Eldrazi Temple. Start chucking some more mana around. This also lets us Thought-Knot Seer immediately, which is great. And I think I would rather Thought-Knot Seer while our opponent's tapped out, and we can take any removal or whatever. We don't care about the Meltdown. We might care about the Dragon's Rage Channeler. If we take the Consign to Memory, this is an instant. So that's going to be something that they can use to dig with their existing Dragon's Rage Channeler. If we were to play anything, I think it is just a Consign to Memory that goes here. Very good card, but we get to kind of get around things here. Sowing Mycospawn, so good. Look at this. Just exploding out onto the board now. Our opponent's in an awkward position with attacks. Right, they drew a land for turn, so they've basically just got the Dragon's Rage Channeler to play. These are kind of road blocked. We can just kind of accelerate out from here. So Fleshraker is probably the first thing I want to get into play. We could have done some stuff with Fleshraker last time, but I just wanted to make sure that we got this Mycospawn up and running uncounterably. So let's play the Fleshraker. Then we can play this little guy. Alright, our opponent's just scooping up because we have a lot of beef in play. So that is the match. I think we are 2-0, so let's go to the third round. Something I just want to say about the previous round, actually, is our opponent ended up being in a battle of just creatures in that second match, which is never going to favour them. They need to have all their tricksy spells. Alright, let's have a look at this hand. No soul lands, which isn't great because our deck's got many of them. Lots of fast mana, which I'm not a fan of. I think we can do better than this and have a more stable hand. Alright, I don't like the Mox Diamond very much, but we got turn 1 play. We could keep this so any land gives us a turn 2 Mycospawn. That's okay. But what is the choice that we throw away here? The Kozilek's Command is something we can at least do something with. So maybe it's the Mycospawn that goes, even though it's the best card in the hand, I think. See, the Mycospawn or the Kozilek's Command or the Mox Diamond. I think if we bin off... The highest ceiling, I think, is probably having it Heralds the End into Mycospawn. That's probably like the best thing that we can do. So I think I want to keep that alive. But we have 2 Mycospawns, so maybe just get rid of one of them. And then we kind of have the most options available. So let's just jam a Grizzly Bear. Not many Grizzly Bears out there that are good enough for Legacy. This is one of them. Alright, Mox Diamond. Are we seeing an Eldrazi strategy? Or are we seeing a land strategy? A Wasteland. Okay. That's very problematic for our plans. Swords to Plowshares. Okay, so we're probably looking at green-white depths. Or, you know, the white... oh dear, what am I supposed to do here? So we probably don't need the Cavern of Souls. I'll be looking at the lands builds that sort of index more towards white. We don't have to worry about counter magic, so the Cavern isn't as essential. It is fixing, but so is the Mox Diamond. And the Mox Diamond can't be wastelanded. Cradle, you say? Okay, I'll play out a Mox Diamond. I'll bin off this Cradle. Play this out. Name Eldrazi. Cast this. Go and get a Wasteland. Take out their Saga and hope that that's what their hand is relying on for action. Crop rotation? It is a crop rotation, sure. Alright. So we didn't really impact very much with that Wasteland, unfortunately. Blast Zone. That's unlikely to do anything too scary. Another Wasteland, you say? Alright, I guess we're going to crash in with our little friend here. Play a Wasteland. Do you have another crop rotation, or are you all in on this particular as a Saga? They're going to get one guy, which we have a very clean answer to. Soul Guide Lantern. That does not impact us. We will get rid of this. So I think I'm going to draw a card and exile target creature. Colourless. Oh no, wait, the Mox Diamond doesn't tap for colourless, does it? That's awkward. Alright. He only taps for coloured mana sources. Very irritating. Maze of Ith. A lovely, lovely Maze of Ith. Not a bad one. Ugh, that's a horrible draw, isn't it? Alright. They did want to Maze of Ith here rather than get their 4 damage through. So they might have just wanted to take 3 and bash for 4. And that's a perfectly reasonable thing. They could also attack for 4 with their construct and then maze their construct in the post-damage step in the end of combat. That's certainly a reasonable thing to do. Yeah, so this is kind of what we mean about having lots of colours in the Eldrazi deck. It does make your colourless spells more difficult to cast sometimes, as well as your coloured spells. Thought-Knot Seer, though. That's a good one, isn't it? Yeah, this has to be colourless, otherwise we can't cast it. Doesn't really matter because Cavern's not doing anything here. What is our opponent's 1 card in hand? Talon Gate of Madara. Let's see if they want to maze over the creature. So this is kind of... Yes, we are making our opponent click through stuff as well as making us click through stuff. But it gives us some information about how our opponent sees the board state and what they want their creatures to do. Or their creature to do. And if that board state changes in a way, then we might end up learning some important things. Don't want to trade a Thought-Knot Seer. I don't. Our opponent's just going to keep building up this blast zone until it gets to 4 to try and kill our Thought-Knot Seer. Alright, so we're going to lose our Eye of Ugin here. That is A-okay with me because it's not doing anything for us right now with this other one sat in our hand. Right, so we get to force through some actual damage this turn. I'm really reluctant to block this construct. Giving our opponent a free card is annoying. Giving our opponent like value out of this construct when we can kill it with half of a card sat in our hand. It's all pretty awkward. An expedition map. So don't play a land here. 1 card in hand. Right, we're not blocking anyway at this point because we don't get anything out of this block. I'm going to say if our opponent plays a land, then they can up the blast zone. If they don't play a land, then we know our Thought-Knot Seer is going to have at least another round being in play. Right, they're just cracking the expedition map straight up. It's going to be like a tabernacle. It is a tabernacle. It's hard. It's hard out there. I'm going to keep the Thought-Knot Seer and let the other guy die. I'd love to find a colourless source here. We found a colourless source. Now, does it get us quite where we need to be? Not particularly, but it's something. There's no point making our opponent tap their Maze of Ith this time around. So make them pay for the construct if they want it. They do want it. Good to know. I'd like to phase out my Thought-Knot Seer. Okay. I'm going to attack with their construct. We will do some scrying and we will exile a creature. Colourless. Colourless, and because of the eye, it's for 2. So get rid of their guy. I'm not opposed to having lands here, but it's not really where I want to be. That stage of the game has kind of gone. Okay, I think we use the coloured mana because this is the least useful mana to us right now. Wasteland is good. Eldrazi Temple is not so good. We'll play it out. We'll leave the Lotus Petal in hand for purposes of Glaring Fleshraker. Our opponent is going to up their blast zone and use that to kill the Thought-Knot Seer soon. We got 5 mana towards an activation of our Eye of Ugin. So our opponent can wait for us to spend mana on this, which he will do. An expiration. Alright, that doesn't do anything unless they find a life from the loam, in which case it does an awful lot. Keep our little friend alive. These force our opponent to blow their blast zone on it. The Linebreaker is fine. It's not incredible, unfortunately, because they're going to blast zone to kill our... Wait, 1, 2... Yeah, they're going to blast zone to kill our Linebreaker, our Thought-Knot Seer, and then they're going to Maze of Ith our Linebreaker. So this doesn't actually achieve anything. But it makes all of our other draws better, and we can really pressure the Maze of Ith with any creature we draw. Good night, sweet prince of Thought-Knot Seer. You dealt no damage, despite this being turn 10 and you coming into play pretty early on. We don't really have any plays, so we can just F6 our opponent's turn, save the clock. Alright, they found the life from the loam. Do I think we can beat this life from the loam? We do have Kozilek's Command, which can exile life from the loam, but them playing 2 Wastelands a turn is a lot. We basically need to do it next turn. Alright, they're taking out the 2 Eldrazi Temples. The things can actually tap to keep our Linebreaker alive. Understood. These land strategies are very good against Eldrazi. I think land strategies are actually quite well positioned right now. We don't get to cast this because we have no colourless mana. I'm going to concede that one. Alright, so I don't like a lot of the things our opponent is up to. I don't think Wastescape Battlemage is where I want to be. Could be wrong on this one. Like maybe we just want to have 1 so we can go and shoot for it. I don't think we need a Karakas in this matchup, so we can make a little bit of space there. I do like having lands that produce mana in this particular matchup, but I think having a way of stopping... Is our plan to stop life from the loam going to be Kozilek's Command, get out of the graveyard? Or are we going to be boarding in Leylines? Because those are 2 options that are available to us. Could be boarding in another Wastescape Battlemage just to blow up Urza's Sagas. I don't hate that. Nulldrifter feels quite expensive, so just have more Urza's Saga hate here. Chalice of the Void on some of their stuff is kind of useful, but they do have an uncounterable way of getting it in terms of Presage, but we can put it on 2 and stop the life from loans. We can also have the Leylines. I think we just want to be fast enough that our opponent doing Leyline stuff isn't that big a deal for us. Alright, we're going to try this and see how we fare. We've got the wrong Eldrazi land for where we want to be here, but we do have a basic. What does the basic actually do for us? Gives us turn 2 Mycospawn. That's reasonable. I think I want to play out the forest here. It's not big or exciting. I'd like to draw a disposable land next turn, so we can just play the Fleshraker out. That would be ideal. Mox Diamond, you say? It's not really the one, was it? If we want to play out this Fleshraker, we have to give up our Eye of Ugin. It doesn't feel like a thing I want to do. So we have to give up the Wasteland. But again, I think that's reasonable enough. I don't think we're going to try and wasteland our opponent here. I think we're just going to try and get some more mana in the tank. So that's probably going to be an Eldrazi Temple here. Allows us to cast a Fleshraker and move on. We could have played a Mox Diamond and got off a small Kozilek's command, but I don't think that's worth it. I'm going to play out the Fleshraker. Sure. But we've kind of gotten out from underneath any Wasteland strategy our opponent can do, but they can obviously use that as a hammer later on. But this Wasteland isn't going to do that much to us. Oh, don't get me wrong, I would love to have that Kozilek's command be too larger. But we'll take what we have here. A Force of Vigor. So I would like to scry and make some guys. I don't really know how I feel about this Wasteland. Or this Battlemage. Like, we're going to want a Wasteland at some point. Do I want the Battlemage right now, though? We definitely want the Wasteland. We're not going to Wasteland this Savannah. We're going to use it to stop like a Maze of Ith or whatever. I'm just not sure about this Battlemage. It stops some of the things I'm worried about. But it means we're not really doing anything exciting this turn. We're not doing anything exciting this turn anyway, because we've just cast this Kozilek's command. I will play out... Do I want to play out this Wasteland? I think I do. Let's get the lands in play. I don't think I want to play out Battlemage here, because we can use this Battlemage to blow up a... or exile even an Urza Saga, which then it doesn't come back. Right, a Yavimaya, thanks. That helps me out too. Right, let's attack for a measly 3. Giving our opponent time is not ideal. So now we're in this awkward position of we have no pressure. Are we supposed to play this Battlemage, or are we supposed to save it to interact with our opponent? We definitely want to keep playing our lands out, and we already have non-basic showing. Do we just want to jam a Battlemage and have a 2-2? I don't think we do. I think we're better off trying to hit an Urza Saga and just get rid of that once and for all. Because that's the way our opponent can actually stabilize. And we know we're going to have some threats at some point. Life from the Loam. Getting back a Wasteland. It's not very fun, is it? Alright, Kozilek's command. We need you. Cradle's not nothing. We can take out our opponent's Savannah here. And that stops our opponent from Wastelanding next turn. Is that how I want to be spending my turn? No. But it's something. I would much rather be sat in the lands player's seat in this matchup for sure. Right, so they can Wasteland us. That probably means they have an additional mana source in hand. But we have a decent chunk of mana here. Sowing Mycospawn. Alright, there is an argument between playing the Mox Diamond out and the Cradle. The Cradle is obviously a lot of mana. So this is 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, 4, 5 mana. We're so close to kicking this. If we kick it, we can blow up their land and do all sorts of things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We are just one short. That's so irritating. We don't have a Bajuka Bog. We could get a Wasteland and just try and stop our opponent from doing stuff. We could get more mana for ourselves. But they've been holding up what is quite obviously a crop rotation for quite some time. I think I want the Eye of Ugin, or is it the Temple? I think it's the Temple, actually. Because it actually produces mana, which is going to be an important thing. And I don't think we play the Battlemage here. We want to be able to stop an Urza Saga. Or an Exploration. Which then ports Talon Gates. Phase out a guy that doesn't do anything because it phases in our turn anyway. They can port us though. Right, they're going to play a Sphere of Resistance. That begs the question as to what we're supposed to blow up from our opponent here. So, we play this, name Eldrazi. So this is 2 mana. And some green mana. What are we exiling here? I think it's the Exploration. But they can get the Life from the Loam back and Wasteland us once next turn. I don't want to get Wastelanded twice. Not a fan of how this game is going. But they probably hit the Cradle with their first Wasteland. Yeah, so they obviously dredged there. Right, Urza Saga is in hand. They only get to play 1 land a turn. They've gone for this Saga rather than the Wasteland. That allows us to bash for a reasonable amount this turn. Ah, these stinky Moxes. Not a phrase you always hear. But yeah, these Moxes are not helping us out. And we need to play slightly more mana in this build of Eldrazi because of our colour requirements. You can get away with a little bit less in the mono green build. And one of your mana pieces of like the Repurposer is a creature on its own and produces stuff on the board. So our opponent gets to make a construct and Wasteland us. I'm saving this Wasteland for our upkeep. Right, the reason for that is Kozilek's command. It's the reason they've they waited until then. If they forced us to cast it in the end step, maybe that's bad for them. Nulldrifter. So this will be a 2/2. How much do we get off of this? 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana. So we can just evoke it, is about the best we can do. We got 5 mana as well from this, but thanks, I hate it. What does Wastelanding the Ereza Saga do? Stop some tutoring next turn. I'm pretty sure they would trade for a Battlemage here. Is that worth it for me? I think it is. Having to wasteland your opponent's land that is going to come back next turn anyway, it doesn't feel great. Let's stop our opponent getting more constructs. Try and make it more difficult for our opponent to multi-spell or, you know, multi-do stuff. Ooh, they didn't dredge the life from alone. Obviously, they still have lands in hand. All right, so they've gone for the Maze of Ith now. Kind of a punishment for us using the Wasteland. There's just so many things that put us in the squeeze in this matchup. It's really horrible. Cavern of Souls. Sure, we'll name Eldrazi. We will attack because their Maze of Ith produces mana due to the Riftstone Portal in their graveyard. So it's worth making them tap it. Maybe worth is a strong word, but it's not just insulting our opponent. It does do things. All right, so the Wasteland takes out Temple. We've got another one in hand. We're really in the squeeze now. Kozilek's Command. Okay. Now we're cooking with some amount of gas. I would like to exile some cards from a graveyard. So we got 2 for this, 1 for the things. There's only X equals 1 here. I will draw a card. So I would draw a card and I will exile this life from the loam. Thought-Knot Seer. You do have power and toughness, don't you? I'm a big fan of having power and toughness. Right, we'll attack with our Mycospawn. Force the Maze of Ith activation. I don't know what our opponent can do on 2 mana. Probably not very much. But we've stemmed the tide a little bit from just getting buried by this Wasteland. They found another loam immediately. They did. Okay. That's something, isn't it? Feels like we've been losing this game for quite some time. Alright, let's cast an Eldrazi Linebreaker. Colourless mana. And our Eldrazi spawn. We get attacks. We're actually pushing damage now. So we get 3 damage a turn. Our opponent's on 6. So our opponent is dead to our attack next turn if they don't find something else here. And if we can play this Thought-Knot Seer, then we get to have another creature. So maybe we can squeak over the line here. Obviously, casting Thought-Knot Seer will require a soul land because we're under the sphere and we only have 3 mana. But it's a thing that could happen. There's plenty of soul lands in our deck. All right, we managed to tie the match up. Not quite sure how, but we did get there. Still like the plan we've gone for rather than trying to leyline our opponent. I think that's reasonable. Like if we can get some guys in play and do our thing. We do have some innate graveyard hate that doesn't have many other useful targets. Alright, let's resubmit. I would like more land. I am going to keep this. We have a turn 1 play, we have a turn 2 play. Oh no. Alright, this might be hard to beat. A Wasteland. It's not what we're about just yet. Let's get a creature in play so we can at least threaten to do some damage while our opponent's, you know, doing landsy type stuff. So we can chip our opponent down a bit and then maybe get over the finish line later. Thespian stage, alright, we might be getting buried by something. Oh dear. Alright, so they're going to rush down port us here, aren't they? Do I want to fire off Kozilek's Command to just cantrip here and use the thing? I don't think so. I think we just pay for 1 here. Thanks, I hate it. What is the option here? We can try and wasteland the Tabernacle if we want to. Yeah, our opponent's got a selection of very fun pieces to toy around with us. Problem is, if we try and hit the Tabernacle, they can stage it. But we can at least make them do that in their turn. Tap our... Okay. So this is where we hit the Tabernacle. Crop rotation into something else? No, just let it go. So we can Linebreaker next turn, or we can Fleshraker and then try and pan out. Because the Tabernacle is obviously very problematic for us trying to do Fleshraker things. Why you got to be like that, opponent? Why you got to be like that? Do I want to continue playing this game? That is a really good question. The answer to which is no. I don't think I want to play this game. I don't think we can win here. We can exile this life from the loam. Oh, this is just so awful. I have to say no to this. Draw for turn. Yep, so we don't even get to do the Kozilek's Command because of the Rishdan Port. I don't want to play this game anymore. Our opponent is going to win this game. It's just going to take a little while. If we'd have chipped our opponent down a bit, sure, but we've hit them for 2, and now they're behind, like, so many good things here. Alright, let's concede this one. So that's 3 rounds in the bag. Let's go to number 4. Kind of a weird looking hand. What are we doing with it? Turn 2, the best thing this hand can do is hit the Heralds at the end. Is a Grizzly Bear on turn 2 where I want to be in Legacy? I don't think we do. I think we can do better. Let's be more aggressive. Let's see. So you get rid of the Mox Diamond. Yeah, turn 2, Mycospawn. I don't like this one very much either, but Mycospawn is arguably the best card in the deck. So in order to make this happen, we probably want to play out the wastes first. Do I want to play out these petals? I think so. Because that way, if we get our hand disrupted, we can still make a 4-drop on turn 2. Great Furnace. Painter's Servant it is. Okay. So our mana base is unlikely to be attacked. But we do need to play out the Mycospawn here. So this is a slightly tricky one to know what to get. I think we want the Temple rather than the Eye. So next time we get to peek at our opponent's hand, and then we can just start going in with Wastelands. It's going to be... Or Magus of the Moon in the main deck in Welder. Not Welder, in Painter. That is unusual. Interesting though. Okay, I guess a Mox Diamond is better than... No, it's not. They have a Welder. Let's not be silly here. Let's take a peek at what they're working with. Pretty glad we have this Wastes. Maybe our opponent isn't Painter. Because Magus of the Moon is... Or they could be like going back to an older build. Agatha's Soul Cauldron and the Phyrexian Devourer. Okay. Goblin Engineer is probably the scariest thing there, so we'll take that. I don't believe our opponent wants to trade here. No. So this Mox Diamond is likely just going to get pitched to a Glaring Fleshraker at some point in the future. So we saw the Mountain, we saw the Fable, as expected. This is a pretty good one. Do you want to trade your entire board for a Thought-Knot Seer? Be my guest. They did not, in fact, want to trade their entire board for a Thought-Knot Seer. Our opponent might not be Painter, it might just be full-on Soul Cauldron combo. And just having main deck Maguses instead of any Urza Saga action. Right, they discarded the Devourer, have the Soul Cauldron, and then we're just dead here, aren't we? Whoops. Because they attack with everything, and then they can put the counter on the thing. Yeah, that was my bad. Alright. That was a little bit foolish of us in the end there. Okay. Null Rods, get those in. Wastescape Battlemages, get those in. I kind of want to get rid of Mox Diamonds in this matchup. They feel like a bit of a liability in Null Rod Town, as well as our opponent having Welders. So that's 61. Maybe get rid of a Nulldrifter here. I don't think we want Chalices. The Dismembers are definitely coming in though, so probably Nulldrifters, get out there. And I suppose it's probably a Kozilek's command that goes. It is kind of interesting being able to hit our opponent's graveyard, but it is colourless, which is hard to cast underneath our opponent's Magus of the Moon, but we can float in response. We're getting rid of a Karakas. Get rid of a Karakas here. Alright. This matchup should be horrible for us because our opponent, if they are Painter, has loads of things that are very good against us. So we have removal, we have the Fleshraker. This hand is a bit slow, but it has key interaction for a matchup that I think is going to be very difficult. So do we want our opponent to know how good their Magus is? I don't think we do. I think we can just name Eldrazi here. Because this taps for all of our colours and colourless. So it's going to make it easier to cast anything we want. Alright, looks like we're going to see a Magus of the Moon here. It could just be like a Fable, but I'm expecting a Blood Moon effect. An actual, factual Blood Moon. Interesting. Right, we'll play out our little land here. So we kept this back so our opponent didn't know quite how good our stuff was. I quite like a Lotus Petal here. Maybe boarding out the Mox Diamonds is a mistake, but they've been so bad this league for us, as a general rule. Do I want to kill this? Is this our target for removal? I don't think it is. A Cradle, you say? Alright, we can deploy the Fleshraker. This makes all of our colourless spells a lot better. And allows us to multi-spell. So they're definitely going to come in. They should very easily realise that their Goblin Shaman token is less important than our Fleshraker. We're going to see a removal spell on our Fleshraker. We're going to see an Abrade. So we're hoping that that would get us to our Kozilek's command mana. Right, we'll play a Glaring Fleshraker. Play this out because we do not have Mox Diamonds in our deck anymore. I guess, like, they're really bad against Welder, but they're really useful against Blood Moon, so it's kind of a weird situation to be in, I guess. Maybe we are supposed to keep them. We're going to see here another Abrade. It is another Abrade. So now I think we dismember the Kiki-Jiki, or the reflection of Kiki-Jiki. Eye of Ugin, what does that do for us? Very little, but we'll play it. We can cast an Eldrazi Linebreaker. Alright, here comes the guy. Brayer's Apprentice, sure. Good card. I'm really curious if our opponent is running Painter. I don't think you run Blood Moons and the Saga in the same deck. I just don't think that's a thing that you do. So I don't believe our opponent is on that. Alright. We're taking a little bit of a beating there. Thought-Knot Seer. Spell we can cast. 1, 2, 3, 4. So they can cast it to Chaos Defiler next turn. So I guess we say no to Chaos Defiler. So we can block one of these. Alright, they're invoking the Fury and killing our guy because they drew a red card. And that's exactly lethal. Yeah, we got bodied pretty hard there. But this matchup looks like it's going to be horrible. They've basically taken a Painter deck and smashed in a bunch of Blood Moons. So it looks like it's pretty much designed to kill Eldrazi decks. So we can't really be too worried about that one. Alright, let's go to the final round. We are currently 2-2. I don't like this hand. We have no real fast mana. Our plays aren't particularly explosive. So let's do better. Turn to Sowing Mycospawn is probably alright here. We've probably bin off one of our K commands. What we're playing out on turn 1. We could play out the Ancient Tomb and the Lotus Petal on turn 1. That way we can do an emergency Kozilek's command if we need to. That's reasonable. That gives us protection against like a Dark Ritual Entomb Reanimate line. So I think I like that. Eldrazi Temple. Right, we're in the Eldrazi mirror here. They've got a little guy. We've got a big guy. Cavern of Souls doesn't matter. We don't want to play the Yavimaya out now because our opponent can benefit from that. So we play out the Cavern of Souls. We name Eldrazi. Nice little mirror match to finish off the league. Now, what land are we fetching is the interesting one here. Is it an Eye of Ugin? It's probably an Eye of Ugin. Or if we get a Temple, we can't be Wastelanded off Colourless very easily. So I think it is a Temple here. Thought-Knot Seer. I guess we are casting this. I would like to... The problem is with scrying with this is it doesn't help us very much. We can scry, but if the card we want is the one on top, we draw it and then it goes away. So I guess we just have to let this hit us. Alright, we are in a spot of bother here. The Heralds of Hand is very good in the mirror. Making all your creatures slightly bigger than your opponents when you're playing the same creatures. Nice place to be. Oh well. Hello at the Heralds of the End. I think we snap this off and try and shrink our opponent's mana. We can kind of hold the fort a little bit here. If they attack with a Thought-Knot Seer, we can double block. We will lose both our guys though. We will draw a card. That is a tough choice. But the Ancient Tomb is going to dig our opponent down. Alright, they've got a Wasteland. This Fleshraker. It is. Alright, our opponent is certainly ahead in this game. They have better permanents in play for sure. On top of what we've got. And obviously Thought-Knot Seer is a much better body than a Mycospawn. Wastescape Battlemage. We could bounce the Thought-Knot Seer. Or we could bounce the... We could bounce the Thought-Knot Seer, or we could bounce the Heralds of the End. If we bounce the Heralds of the End... I think I just want the card off the Thought-Knot Seer, right? This is when it leaves play. So if we cast this with blue kicker. This is 1, 2, blue, 1. If we tap float Eldrazi mana, if we draw something useful here, we might be able to cast it. This does give our opponent something else they get to Fleshraker. But it allows us to actually push a little bit of damage this turn. And maybe we find something handy. That is handy, just not right now. We can't deploy it. Right, would you like to trade either of your creatures for a Sowing Mycospawn? I do not believe our opponent does. Cavern of Souls from our opponent. This is like an evoked Nulldrifter. Oh no, it's just a Thought-Knot Seer. They were just tapping for blue off of the Cavern. Sure. So we can lose our good card in hand. That was certainly something that could happen with a Wastescape Battlemage play. If we'd have fetched the Eye of Ugin instead of the Temple earlier, we would have been able to deploy that as well. Another Eldrazi Temple is not really going to get anything going for us. Certainly not paying the bills here. Attacks are bad. Blocks aren't great. Our opponent has a Fleshraker, so whatever they do is just going to produce them more power, more damage. At least we're not susceptible to Wasteland right now, but we're not really getting anywhere. If our opponent's got Kozilek's command, we're just dead here, I think. Another Fleshraker. Okay, so we might be dead this turn. So each Fleshraker trigger is worth more damage. So we're on 12. We have to cast a fair few spells to kill us from this point. If they cast a Kozilek's command for 1, doesn't really get them anywhere exciting. Another It That Heralds the End. Sure. It's going to smash us down. What? a huge amount here. And they're making spawns if they've got just more stuff to do. Right, we're down to 6. Yeah, you can see how scary these Fleshrakers are. Kind of got to do it in one game, but we were one short due to a stifle. Right, so we're going to draw off a turn. It's a Kozilek's command. This is the sort of thing that can help us out of a spot like this. Do I play this Yavimaya, or do I hold it in case we draw the Fleshraker, the Eye of Ugin for future Kozilek's commands? I think we are doing it without the Yavimaya here. So I think we're on Hail Mary playtime. So we're just going to pump all of our mana into this, make a bunch of guys, scry a bunch, see if we can find some way out of this. This also gives us a load of chump blockers, but we don't need chump blockers. We need to get rid of both these Fleshrakers or try and kill our opponent. Our opponent being on 8 means it's certainly possible. I'm not really sure how we're going to get out of this one, given what we have. These do not win us the game. No, I think we made a mistake there as well. I think the plan was to hit this with a Kozilek's command, leaving enough mana, and then having enough mana to then draw another Kozilek's command and hit this, and hope that we have enough blockers. But our opponent's just going to wear us down with these things. I don't think we can win that one. Alright, for the mirror. What do I want for the mirror? Probably removal spells. Nulldrifter is good, but slow. Don't want to bounce my opponent's Eldrazi's. Not particularly. Let's get one of these in. The Karakas doesn't feel good, so get another Dismember in. Everything else feels pretty integral, so maybe it's just one of the Nulldrifters. Let's come out the gates faster than our opponent. 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana. Okay. I'm going to be relying on drawing something I can cast on turn 2. But turn 1 Fleshraker is pretty good. So this, we name Eldrazi. We do have to play these out. We can't use them for Fleshraker food. So we want to get the Fleshraker going. Okay. We're on the board. If we can draw a spell we can cast, or a soul land, and bear in mind soul lands are very abundant in our deck, then we can really pop off here. If there's a Dismember here, that's obviously going to set us back a little bit because we invested a lot of cards to make this Fleshraker happen. Yeah, it's a Dismember. Alright. I'm not particularly happy with our chances right now, but I think we want to take our opponent's best play out of their hand. I think that's the axis we're operating on right now. Jeez. So our opponent has the Temple, so they can play the Linebreaker next turn. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not a fan of the Fleshraker either, though. And the Kozilek, I think it's the Fleshraker that has to go. It just produces so much in the way of blockers, in the way of extra mana, just like incidental damage. It really does it all. So here's a Temple. We're going to see the Linebreaker, and then we have a choice about what we're doing in terms of trades. I don't want to trade this Thought-Knot Seer, but I'm okay to trade the Mycospawn. We can shut our opponent off of Kozilek's command, getting a Wasteland. And we can also block this. So yeah, I do not want to trade my little guy. Hit the Heralds the end. Okay. I'll cast this one. 1, 2. And green. And this. Our Ancient Tomb is certainly not free here. So we could Wasteland and take them off of Kozilek's command. Or we could go and get an Eldrazi Temple and play out Hit the Heralds the end. And just have bigger creatures than our opponents. I think we just want to have bigger creatures here. Play this. Can't say I played the mirror very much. Certainly not with this build. With all the extra colours and stuff. Alright. Our opponent's down to 11. We have lethal damage in play. So if they want to attack, we can take it. And they will have to then work out what's going on. They can Spatial Contortion away out at the Heralds the end. That's not the highest of value plays. They can take out our at the Heralds the end using a Kozilek's command. Right, they're coming in with a Linebreaker. I think I'm okay to block here. Even if they kill out at the Heralds the end, it's just a trade. We're still left with this Thought-Knot Seer kicking. Okay. They can do a Kozilek's command for 3. Okay. We can just sit on this Kozilek's command. I don't think we need to fire it off just now. We can use it to clear a blocker for next turn. As well as make lots of guys that might mess with our opponent's calculations. Spatial Contortion. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If we cast this now, we get an additional cost because of the reduction on this. So I would like to do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it goes right up to 5. I can go on the bottom. Go on the bottom. I don't mind having another Kozilek's command here. Go on the bottom. I can go on the top. And this can go on the top. And then next turn we can just Fleshraker burn our opponent out. Eldrazi Temple. Let's see what you want to do. We have lethal with just the Fleshraker and the command. Sowing Mycospawn. That might make it harder for them to actually remove any of our creatures. Right, we're going to take out a land. That means that we don't necessarily have lethal straight up here. Although we can remove their creature, right? And then crash through with a Thought-Knot Seer. It depends what they get here and how much mana they can pump into whatever they get. They could go for like a Wastelanding line. I don't think that's going to keep them in the game though. Especially since we top 2 cards off of that Kozilek's command and they know that we did that. Cradle. Okay. I don't have the mana to Kozilek's command yet. Okay, so I think we play this. 1, 2, 3. Cast this. Make some guys. Exile a creature. So this is 1, 2, 3. And then we have pay it for 4 to exile a guy. Bash for 2. For 4, sorry. There's no Dismember going to work here. Alright, being on the play is good. Let's see if we can win on the draw. That's going to be harder, for sure. But then we just go in again as it was. This hand is pretty stacked. We can start playing our best cards from turn 2. I'm going to keep this one. I think we lead off on our Eldrazi Temple, most likely. If our opponent doesn't do anything on turn 1, then we'll Wasteland. But if they do anything, then we have to put mana on the board and try and get back into the game. Is it just a 2-2? No, it's an Eldrazi Linebreaker. Okay, that's pretty good. So we're getting bashed for 4 on turn 1. I don't like it, but we will have to dismember this. We'll see if our opponent plays first and if there's anything we want to get rid of more. Right, you're Wasteland. They're just going to tempo us out here. I think they are. Alright. Let's hit this. Paying some life. So now we have an option to try and Wasteland our opponent back if they don't play anything here. They did not play anything here, so we will Wasteland them back. It's turn 3 and our opponent won't have any permanents in play to begin their turn. Alright, they've got an Ancient Tomb there. That's going to at least cost them life. I would like an Ancient Tomb of my very own. Problem is, we kind of restarted the game from scratch, but our opponent was on 20 and we're on 12 in an aggro mirror. Alright, we're going to get Thought-Knot Seer here, I reckon. No. That's kind of suspicious, isn't it? So play this. This costs 1 mana. What do we do with the rest of our mana? Nothing. Let's just Thought-Knot Seer. Take our opponent's best card and see if we can cut their plan off at the knees and just overwhelm them. Nulldrifter. Okay, we take the Sowing Mycospawn. That's easily the best card in their hand. An Ancient Tomb. We knew that was coming. This is a lot of damage. This is going to even up the damage erase a little bit if they want to start tapping those. Okay, they didn't want to start tapping them. Good news. A Lotus Petal. What am I doing? That's such a misplay. We're supposed to play this guy out first. That was really bad. We've missed 1 damage there. And 1 guy, which is really important. Alright, make our Linebreaker attacking. Bash. We have our opponent dead next turn. We could have hit our opponent for 2 more damage this turn if we hadn't messed up. Oh, wastes. So they probably have to... What's this? 2, 4, 6, 7. They can play the Nulldrifter, which is not an easy one for us to get through with a Kozilek's command. We don't need to get through it, do we? We can just crash for a bunch. Alright, our opponent's at 3 actually, so we just make some stuff and win the game. Like, the Kozilek's command for 3 is lethal. So I think we got this one. Can't tap off of this. Alright, they're just scooping it up. We also had enough blockers to go through. So we finished with a 3-2. We did manage to win the mirror, which made me quite happy. Let's have a quick chat about this list. So, yeah, pretty much exactly as I thought it would be. We're going for a higher power of things we can do by splashing, you know, some red and blue stuff. But our mana base does falter a little bit. I think the Wastescape Battlemage is actually really good. This is kind of one of the more impressive things to me in the deck. The flexibility of this is really nice. Just bring them in the sideboard. Okay, you've got Horrible Enchantment, you've got Creature, let's just tempo that out of the way. So that is something that's quite nice to look at. But this mana base definitely caught us out a few times. And the Mox Diamonds, we got 26 lands. That's not necessarily a great amount to support a Mox Diamond. I'd almost be inclined to run Spirit Guides instead. I do like the Spirit Guides in the green build. It also opens up things like the Vexing Board as a potential option. I understand the Mox Diamonds do trigger Glaring Fleshraker though. That's not nothing, and is a consistent source of mana. But I just don't feel we always have enough lands to pitch, right? If you look at the other Mox Diamonds decks in the format, they tend to have about 30 lands. And we're a little bit shy on that. We did have situations where this was just a do-nothing, or it was a... we have to choose which of our important lands we discard. And, you know, maybe it accelerates us by a turn, but then it also means we don't have access to Cradle down the line. I will try and play the mono-green build at some point, like the newest sort of iterations of that. I've got a few little things I want to try myself in that list to improve it, but this deck is obviously one of the big players in the format. Eldrazi is probably one of the top decks at the moment. There's a little bit of jostling at the top because people are kind of abandoning Rescaminator a little bit in favour of just like mid-rangey Psychic Frog decks, because Psychic Frog is quite the Magic the Gathering. But this deck is clearly very powerful. I do like playing Eldrazi type stuff, or at least I used to back in the day. I'm sort of off it these days, but I think what it's doing is intrinsically powerful, and you do sacrifice a little bit of consistency, so you will lose to your own deck some amount of the time, but you will be able to crush some matchups with some good draws that maybe you would struggle with if you had a slightly more reliable deck that didn't have explosive stuff like Linebreaker in. Like, this can certainly turn a game on its head. So it's a worthwhile card to have. Personally, I prefer erring on the side of caution and having like a more stable deck, but I certainly see the traction here. And at the end of the day, if you want to win a big tournament, you do need to have a little bit of luck, whether that's, you know, matchups, not getting mana screwed, whatever. So why not lean into that a touch? It's not like this deck is like completely luck-based or anything like that, but you can just lean into that a little bit because you kind of need that anyway. And that is a sort of thing that stompy decks have historically done anyway, because you play your opening hand most of the time, and then, you know, you're going to draw a few cards down the line, but your mulligan decisions are really clutch. So that's kind of like where this is going on that one. Sideboard-wise, yeah, everything sort of felt more or less fine. The Null Rod with 7 tapping artifacts feels a little bit awkward to me, but I understand it because when this is good, it's going to be really good, and you can just kind of try and get around that. We got absolutely crushed by the Blood Moony artifacty deck, but that deck looks like it's pretty much beaten to designed to beat all the Eldrazi decks. Just hoover them all up, which is a fair place to be right now. And Blood Moon is pretty good against a lot of these 3-color frog decks as well, and the sort of new 3-color Esper deck that people are playing too. Alright, I think we're done for this one, so I hope you enjoyed this one. Please remember to like and subscribe, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.